Hey, welcome to another video from the Outdoor Analyst. Today I've got a super exciting video. I think this is going to be a little different than what anybody's sort of done when it comes to picking the best ESEE knife out there. And I think it's going to be a little different because I'm not only going to just show you my favorite ESEEs, I'm going to put kind of like the next step up from what ESEEs can be and kind of some knives that are fairly similar in use, but just probably, I guess you could say for the most part, way more expensive. And then kind of see what's really worth it. Is there a reason to move up from ESEE? Is ESEE the best? What's my favorite ESEE? Why do I kind of choose that? This video has been driving me crazy because it's just so wild how good these knives are. And I'm gonna tell you up front, my favorite ESEE does not exist yet. And I may get into that in a little bit. But just kind of knowing from the background here, what I really enjoy doing, I just like doing bushcraft and hunting. That's the main thing I use my knives for. Obviously, there's just, stuff around the property and the house that you just have to use knives for. But in general, for the hobby, for what I really enjoy them for, I'm usually making fires, I'm hitting up camp, doing camp life, or just hunting with them, which means lots of field dressing. That's kind of where I like to live, and I think you can see just from my choice of ESEEs here, it kind of reflects that a little bit. So let's just go down the line. What are here? Why are other knives not here from ESEE? ESEE makes great stuff. I love ESEEs. They've been around for a long time. I've sold just an insane amount of them in my past, way back when. So these are the ones that I've decided to just get for myself that I enjoy. I think the actual timeline of what I did for these was my first one actually was ESEE 3 and S35VN. This is fairly new to the ESEE line. This got me back into ESEE. This is a nice, thin, slicey blade. They changed the handles and made some contoured G10 scales, which for me was a big reason why I wanted one of these, and now it's S35VN stainless. I like this steel. It's tougher than S30V. It is very stainless. It holds up well, and I got this knife essentially to be a backup hunting knife, possibly a nice little, I guess I would say maybe kind of a bushcrafter, but this turned out to be way too thin. So for me, it's turned itself into a hunting knife, backup hunting knife. It's 3.5 inches long, I think, in reality. It's not a super long blade, and it's super thin and very slicey. So, it does food just fine. Fantastic for kind of the hunting, I guess, the hunting style. After that, this definitely piqued my interest, the RB3. This is kind of like the ultimate woods knife, I feel like, for ESEE, just for like feather sticking, making quick fires, one stick fires, that sort of thing, because it's a Scandi grind. I think it's the only Scandi grind ESEE out there, or at least it's definitely the first one, I'm fairly darn sure anyway. And this handle is done by LT Wright. At least they shape them or gave them the shape. Maybe they gave them the 3D model. I'm not sure if they still do the handles for them. But that was a big game changer to me because it feels incredible in hand. This is a very small knife, not a big blade, but it's super good for just feather sticks and starting a fire. It's awesome for that. Getting a nice cup of tea out in the middle of nowhere. Love this knife. It's been with me for a while. This probably gets the most use. And then after that, it was a toss-up between this knife and then this knife right here. So this is what I picked up next. The SE4, what do they call these? The HM, just because of the handle. Thanks to the RB3, I was like, all right, I'll give this one a shot. Because my biggest issue has always been choils with SE4s and even the SE3s. They just, back in the day, they're a little too small. And this gets rid of the choil and allows you to go right up to the blade. Generally, I like a guard. Instead, the blade's basically your guard on this. But the handle is so comfortable. Really enjoy this knife. It's an SE4 blade, got the powder coat. Yeah, I could live without the powder coat. I wish they'd kind of get rid of them and do this awesome like stone wash or whatever the heck they're doing on the ESEE, the stainless ones. That coating is fantastic. I get why they do this for rust. You do still get rust on the coating. I think my SE6 actually has a little bit of rust starting on the outside of it up top. It's had some work done to it, but that was my next pickup. And then I'm pretty sure I got this one right after it, an S35VN. This is a great knife. This really, really is good. I was hoping these would be somehow pretty thick, and they're pretty good. They're pretty girthy, a lot more girthy than the SE3. So they're a little more contoured, but the length is the same. So it's great here, but it feels a little short. It feels a little short in hand because you're that far away from the blade. Choking up is just fine. It's very comfortable that way. It just kind of turns it into more of a camp knife, backup field dresser. It's a little heavier, definitely a lot heavier than the SE3 by far. It's much thicker. I guess we can just kind of put those in a comparison here. This is very thin and slicey. This you feel like you can actually kind of beat up a little bit and have no issues with it. Very, very comfortable for what it is, but it does feel like a very short handle in the back. It really does. When you choke up, it's great. Feels really good. The choil they did a great job with. I have no issues getting cut here. Not getting cut. And this blade is incredible. This is probably my favorite blade from ESEE, is the stainless SE4. It's just so good at slicing, at even woodwork. It's just excellent. Then I had to pick up an SE6. I mean, I think the SE6 is the most popular they have. Didn't really like the handles as much as the HM version, the LT Right, obviously, because you just get more leeway and freedom with these handles. You can go anywhere, and they're very, very comfortable all around. These are all great knives, and they're all, in my mind, completely for different purposes, and that can be totally whatever you want it to be. This, to me, is just a great little woodworker. That's all it really is. It's a Scandi grind. It's very, very small. It's a short blade. You're not going to be doing much with it but fire prep. The SE4 is kind of a great all-around belt knife, and this handle is, in my mind, the best version of it. It's the most comfortable handle out there. It does fulfill the hand pretty well. It's a little thin up top. Being completely honest, it's a little thin up top. It doesn't fill out as girthy as, let's say, like an LT Right generally does. It's missing a little bit there. They thinned it down, whereas they could have maybe just made it a little taller, not wider, and it would have been fine. Or it would have been perfect, not fine. It is fine. The SE6, great survival knife. I think if you're going for that whole, I do one knife to rule them all, I only have one knife out in the woods, this probably wins just because you can split more with it. You can, span a little more length of wood. You can just get more done with it. You have the ability to do a little bit of chopping, not a ton. This is not a chopper, nor is the regular SE6. It's not super heavy. It's not meant for that. Spans wood great. Does good on batoning. It's not a saber grind. It's a full flat, so it's not going to be the best batoner out there. Does it do great? Yeah, it's done absolutely fine. Really enjoyed this knife. It's really, really good in the survival knife sort of era. The SE4 here, this is kind of like one of your best all-arounders. It's just like this one. I like this blade much better than this. I like S35VN better than 1095. I just do. Holds a way better edge, and it's still fairly tough for stainless. It is not as tough as 1095. It's pretty close. Handle-wise, this is comfy. Really enjoyed it. I thought this might be the best. It's really pushing it. And the SE3 is great. This is super thin. This is not a woodworking knife in any way, shape, or form. This is a thin knife just to have around and kick some butt with. It's super lightweight, great package. This is the backup knife that goes in my pack more often than a lot of knives out there. Just because it's stainless, holds a good edge, fairly tough, even though it's pretty darn thin. Gotta be a little bit careful with it, but super good knife. Now, what's my favorite off of these? I'll just say my favorite doesn't exist. Straight up, if this blade was on this handle, and let me tell you, the first thing I looked at was, can these go off and become those? Can I swap scales? You can't. They're different size. They're definitely different area, different hole diameters on them too. If I could, that would be the perfect ESEE in my mind. It really would. Most comfortable handle, without a doubt. And then you'd have the best blade, I think, in my mind for all-around work, without a doubt, is the SE4 S35VN. That being said, that knife doesn't exist. So where does that really leave you? Well, I think to kind of get into that, I'm going to bring out some comparisons. So what I'm going to call high-end comparisons, or knives that are probably, I'm just going to say it, they're probably a little bit better. Maybe, we'll see. Let's pull them out and see. This is going to be a little LT Wright. I think they call this the Holy Bushman. I'm not going to lie to you guys. This knife is more ergonomic than the RB3, and it's an A2. It's a little bit better steel, and the cost of this, I think, was within $20 to $30 of the ESEE. Oh, this is just beautiful. I love this knife. This is beautiful. The difference is, I think, well, actually, no, these are both leather sheaths. If this was a Kydex sheath, this would actually probably take it just because of the sheath. These are both leather sheaths. This is a better knife. I think so. I think it's a better knife. I think, to me, it's more ergonomic. It's a better steel. It's a little bit better at the fire prep game, but they're very neck and neck. I'm gonna save this knife just because there is something special with that one. I'm gonna start on the other end here. So this is a Bark River Bushcraft Scout. About the same size blade, much thicker handle than the SE3. Very thin, very slicey. This is in Magna Cut. So this is my stainless kind of version of that knife. Oof, this is an incredible knife. This does cost about twice as much. Now, for the same version, if I wanted this to be a little more bushcrafty, a little more woods work, yes, this is a little bit better at it. Very thin blade. It just smokes feather sticks. It's really, really good. But I think they're pretty equal if I was going to go and say this is a field dressing. Pretty darn close to me. You get a little bit more belly out of the ESEE, but you also have not as tall of a blade, which makes some tasks a little easier too. So in comparison, yeah, there's some give and take on those. Let's move into the stainless SE4. What's going to be a comparison to that? For me, I have a custom, actually. This is a Papa Bear Knives custom essential. This is in CPM Magna Cut. This knife is pretty fantastic. Does just about the same thing as the SE4 with a slightly more comfortable blade, handle. I wish this was a little thicker, to be honest with you, and maybe a little bit taller, but when it comes down to it, that's a more comfortable knife than the SE is. It also costs way more, like over double. So there's that. Do I think it's really worth over double? It is a much better steel. Magna Cut's pretty much, you know, the best of the best. It's as tough as 3V almost, and then as stainless as, it's almost completely stainless, which is pretty ridiculous. It's almost like Van X. It's just absolutely insane. They're using it for saltwater knives now too. So, and the edge retention is better than S35 again. So it may technically be worth it just for the steel, but as far as, like, you know, blade profiles and handle material, handles, I mean, it's a little better. Not as, it's still, it's definitely a better knife. I'm just gonna be honest with you. It's much more comfortable long term. You don't have the choil breakup. It doesn't feel short like this knife does. This knife feels short in the handle, but I love it because it's excellent everywhere else. Nothing's perfect, guys. Absolutely nothing is perfect. For the SE6, when it comes to survival knives, I have a philosophy. 6-inch knives generally suck because they're the middle of the road for everything. They're not big enough to do true chopping. They're not big enough to do true, like, batoning, because they're just not long enough. So I prefer them to be incredibly light if I'm going to take something that big. Kind of, for me, the next step up is like a Lon Humphrey Ranger. I guess technically this is like a 7-inch knife, maybe. Yeah, it's probably got a 1/2 inch or an inch on it. It's not really that much bigger. It's just a lot longer because the handle and the way this thing is set up. But it's also lighter than this SE6 is, and that's because of the handle material. This thing is great. It really is. You can span a lot with it. This knife is lighter, has a little more length to it, very ergonomic, and it's a 5160. It's a little better steel. Just a little better steel, costs a little bit more, costs double, over double. It's really worth over double? Maybe not, but in this sort of world, it's lighter, and that makes a big difference to me. It's stronger. You can do more with this knife than you can with that. This one's more comfortable kind of doing feather sticks, but you're not doing that as much when you have a giant knife like this. I'm more apt to take this than I would that, just being honest. And then here's gonna be the real deciding piece of what the best ESEE is in kind of comparison to what's out there. I think this is a cold steel master hunter, and I'm gonna be honest. Honest? Wow, no, I think I actually said that completely wrong. This has fairly decent contouring, it's lighter, it's CPM 3V, it's over double the steel of the 1095, and I think it's actually just as ergonomic in my mind. And going to work, they're fairly similar when it goes to woodwork and just about everything out there. This is actually a better all-around knife, and I think it costs the same. You can find these for like 120 bucks, guys, and it is almost impossible to beat. That being said, I'm pulling these out just to let you know these styles of knives are not new to me by any means. I've probably got multiple triplicates of different versions that all fit these. But I think that kind of helps me break down, like, in comparison to what else is out there, what actually matches up the closest and what would I go for immediately. And as much as I'd like to say it's the SE6 because it's probably the best all-arounder, for me, without a question, it's the RB3, because this is the one I'll put in my pack 10 times out of 10 versus the other ones for what it's supposed to be done, just little fire use. I'd pick this thing up way more. Now, believe me, when I'm going hunting, this is always in the backpack. It's kind of like a staple now. It's got to be there. It's my safety knife, essentially. It's the backup from whatever's going to be doing the real work. But the ESEE RB3 is unique. It's unique in that there's not a lot of other knives out there. I can replace any 4-inch knife, any 6-inch knife, any 3-inch knife. That's kind of meant for that. Doing the bushcraft versions, I have not found many out there that are this good, that are this size and this price. It's a little over 100 bucks. Actually, all these are almost the same price when it comes to the ESEEs. And a little interesting tidbit, a little bit more for the S35VN knives, but honestly, it doesn't really matter the size. The price is fairly similar. However you go, it's just what sort of knife do you want. You'll find that a little weird when you think of the price of steel and handle materials, and you're like, why is this the same price? I don't want to really get into it. That's just how it really is. It's the time that goes into it. But I think the closest out of all of them are these knives. I still will take the LT Right over it. It's better. It just is. But am I missing anything if I just have the ESEE? No, I'm really not. When it comes to paring down knives in a collection, what is the first ones to go? This one. Okay, maybe not that one. This one, this one, this one. Why? Because these other knives are so close to it, and for the price of them, sorry, I didn't mean to hit that one, I would just rather keep the cheaper knives because they're just almost as good. That's the difference. They're almost as good as the really higher end knives above them. Now, the weird one here is just the Master Hunter. I kind of throw this kink in there because this knife is insane, people. I still don't have an individual knife review on this. I should, but it's just so good. I've thought this for over a decade, that this knife is amazing. And when it came out in 3V, it was the game changer in my mind that I feel like nobody caught on to. But anyway, it's out there, it's incredible. And yeah, my favorite ESEE, the ESEE RB3. It's a little unique, it's something special from them. It is really, really good. And I enjoy all of these knives. I enjoy all the ESEEs. If my favorite ESEE doesn't exist yet, it really would be this blade on that handle. Oh, the HM handle with the S35VN blade. Oh, it would be so good. It would just be so good. But there it is. There's my take. I know this was a little bit of a strange video pulling other knives into it. I just kind of wanted to let people know what's out there, and that honestly, for the most part, ESEE kind of dominates the price point. There are a few areas where I think you should kind of look into. If you're in a 4-inch knife, there's other areas. There's probably other knives out there that can really compete, maybe even beat it. Oh gosh, actually, I've got to pull this out while I'm here and on that topic. There's a Moore knife that actually fits this. The Mora Garberg in stainless. I just got to pull that out. This knife I got for 45 bucks, I think. Amazon puts these things out for sale. Even if it wasn't, it's 80 bucks. And it is, man, it's the kink in this area. I'm just throwing this out there so people have some options here. I might actually take the Mora Garberg over the ESEE for the price of being a third or a quarter of it in some cases, almost, at least a third, about a third the price, if you can get it on a really good sale in the stainless. Or you can get the carbon version too, but I've seen the stainless for like, 40, 50 bucks. Pretty incredible, and that actually does give this some competition now just because of price, and then the ESEE 4 HM is really struggling to keep up with that area. Holy cow. I don't know why, I just want to throw that in there. Little extra tidbit. That's probably one of the best price points is this knife area. The 4-inch blade, you can find so much, it's just insane. It gets a little harder when you get smaller into the 3 inches. I think ESEE may have one of the best ones out there. Tops is a good competitor. Yeah, I still have most of my Tops nice in packs, so there's that. That's just something for Tops too. But yeah, there it is. Favorite knife right there. Hope this was fun. Give it a little more of my perspective on kind of how I choose knives, why I choose them, why these are my favorite. Do I love the Hungloss? Absolutely. Hungloss 2? Oh, you better believe it. ESEE 5 is awesome. It's just so thick and too short to actually be of use for me, but it is a whole lot of fun. So I'm not going to say anything bad about it. Most of this, guys, it's complete subjective preference and what you like to do. 10 out of 10, or I mean, probably 10 out of 100 people, less than that would actually say this is their favorite ESEE. They're all going to go for probably some version of the ESEE 6 or an ESEE 4. But that's them. This is me. So that's why I'm kind of putting all this out there. So you have an idea of why I chose this, why I think it's the best, and why it's probably the most unique ESEE out there. Tons of knives in these categories will match up. Not that many in this category of just small fire knife that just kick butt. So there it is. That's my favorite ESEE. I'm sticking to it. Could it change? I hope so. Dear goodness, please make my favorite ESEE. If you ever see this, I would be the first one to buy it, do a video. It'd be amazing. I'd probably even show my face on that one. So anyway, there it is. These are all awesome knives. I love all these ESEEs. They kick butt. And for the price point, they really are good. So anyway, hope you had fun, and I will catch you on the next one.